Welcome to the world according to Rich. During my first year in college, the campus newspaper published an article, uh, Pen Pal Club corresponds with World. Letters Abroad, a nonprofit pen pal organization, is offering students the opportunity to correspond with college students around the world. Now, these were the days before home computers and before the internet was available to the world at large. So communicating with like-minded teenagers in other parts of the world was still very, very unique. So I thought it was a pretty interesting idea, and being somewhat of an Anglophile, I asked to be matched with somebody in England. And I was, before long, corresponding with somebody by the name of Simon Gamble. Simon was my age, it's the same stage of his life, and we went on to correspond for almost 5 years, and we corresponded about our lives, our friendships, relationships, families, our everyday life, our dreams for the future. And it was a pretty good friendship. I found a few years ago, I found the some of the letters that he sent me, and so we were pretty frequent about writing back and forth. Now, it went on pretty frequently until I decided after I graduated from college, I wanted to go take one of these 10-day tours of Europe, which was a bus trip basically that started in London and went all the way through Northern Europe and came back to London. So I have a few days in London before and a few days after, and by that time he was living in London. So I wrote to him and I said, "Guess what? I'm coming." And not that I was going to stay with him or anything like that. I just said maybe we can meet up and get to meet finally. And we've been talking about that over the years in our correspondence. And he said, "Great. Hey, if you want, you can stay a couple of days at my flat. And I've got a sofa bed. It's so if you're welcome to stay there, or if you want your privacy, I understand, and we'll just meet somewhere." And I wrote back and I said, "Great, let's set up a time. Let's set up let me have your your phone number so I can contact you when I get there." And this is about March, and I was actually leaving in May, and that was the last I ever heard from him. I wrote back, as I said, and I wrote back even a second time before May because I hadn't heard from him, and I said, "I'm going to be leaving on this particular day. I need to know how to contact you when I'm there. If it's still okay, that I can to stay with you or whatever the story was." Well, I didn't hear from him. So when I got to London, I was staying with some people, and I sent him a postcard. So I really wasn't quite sure what was going on or why he wasn't responding, and then I went off on my tour, came back. He hadn't responded to the postcard, and as it turned out, when I came back, I stayed in a hotel probably half a mile from where he lived, and I decided to at least walk down there, and I got to where he actually where he actually lived. It was a pretty nice little, I guess, what we call a condominium, kind of a place, and I decided not to knock on the door and say, "Here I am," because he really never confirmed everything. So I felt like I would be invading his privacy. Whether that right or wrong, I just decided not to push it at that point. And I went back to America, and I actually wrote him when I got back. I said, "I don't know, maybe I just wanted to know if you're okay, and sorry we didn't get a chance to meet." And just sort of, continuing the correspondence. I never heard from him. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure why he suddenly disappeared. And it's really hard to figure, why that might be. And in rereading some of his letters just a few moments ago, he mentions a couple of times about his anxiety and he jokes about it. He talks about how, hey, maybe we'll meet and we won't like each other. And maybe that really was more than just a little bit of joking. Maybe there was some insecurity. I don't know. Um, but it's interesting because that would never happen today. We communicate on so many different levels. First of all, there's nothing such thing as a pen pal, because it's so easy now, at least in the Western world, to communicate with people in other countries, and not in one linear way. We have kind of a non-linear means of communication. It could be texting, it could be Facebook, it could be Skype, and it could be YouTube. There's so many different ways. It's sort of hard to get out of each other's hair. Um, and I recognize that today I could conceivably track him down. I have his home address, and where he was from in Northampton, and then his London address, and public records being what they are, I could probably track him down somehow. But I think that verges on stalking a little bit. So I don't think I'm going to do that. What I suspect will happen eventually, perhaps, is what happened with when I wrote about this in my blog a while back. Is that eventually another Simon Gamble found the story. He said, "I'm not the Simon Gamble you're looking for, but here's some resources in England if you want to continue to try to track him down." So I suspect, or perhaps, this Simon Gamble that I knew will one day search his name and find this story on YouTube. And so this is my little flag saying, hey, say hello. Um, but I'm not going to stalk him. But it's so easy to stalk people now, isn't it? You can't really get away from it. So anyway, that's my story for today. I will see you next time.